WFH with two guys. Now here's Benny and Dennis.
Well, hey, everybody. Thanks for joining us on another podcast here. Dennis and I love to talk about this topic. And I can say this is actually a topic that's near and dear to Dennis's heart and something that I really enjoy talking to the expert, our in-house resident expert, and that's KPIs. Now, if you're not familiar with KPIs it's really a report card and a way of you being able to understand the dynamics of your business and understanding how you're really doing well. Dennis, did I do a decent enough definition there?
I mean, KPIs, key performance indicators. And so
Mhm.
it's your way. Think of it like when you go to the doctor's office. They can take blood pressure, listen to your heart, 2 or 3 key things. And I don't know if you're totally healthy, but they can tell if your blood pressure is pretty good sign that you're probably not in major disaster. If your blood pressure is at 200 over something, they probably then are going to pull in lots of other measurements and other tests and all those kinds of things. So think of it that way. Also think of it as on the dashboard of your car. There's lots of moving parts that's happening in your automobile. But if you think about it, the largest one is your speedometer. Then they have the RPMs, and then you have your gas gauge. Those are your 3 KPIs. You know, if I got fuel, that I can go up to a certain speed limit. If I go over a certain speed limit, I get a chance of getting a ticket. And then the RPMs are telling you how fast that car's move or the motor's turning. And so that tells you how much gas you might be potentially using or if there's a problem. Because if it's revving up and you're going slow, it tells you there's a problem with the engine. And then you got some other lights that flash. So like if your radiator's hot or your oil's not doing well, you may not see that right away, but the light will flash on. And so those are kind of lower level ones that you don't need to watch day in and day out. But if it goes outside of a range, it needs to kick in and warn you. So think of a dashboard of a car. That's what you want to try to accomplish with your business.
So what we wanted to do today is to basically put together a bunch of questions. And what I want to do is really, I'm going to interview Dennis today with regards to what KPIs are and some questions that I know are relevant to us as business owners and how we can establish better KPIs for our business. So having said that, let me ask a couple of questions. We have about 5 questions here for Dennis. And so I'm going to let Dennis tackle them and see what we can do, but hopefully we'll hit on the big ones for us here for 2025. Okay, so Dennis, what are the top 3 to 5 KPIs that small businesses in their respective industries should be tracking in 2025 to measure true business health and growth potential?
Sure. So again, you want to try to get leading indicators, not your lagging. So don't worry about the profits and all that. You're going to have that, but that's not going to be your dashboard for what's going on. Typically, let's focus and I'm going to break it down into buckets. So if it's sales driven, I want to know how many new potential prospects I'm talking to, how many proposals are going through, how many meetings people are having. There's certain things, and each one's going to have something different, and that's where you kind of have to lay out. But again, 2 to 3, you don't need thousands of them. 2 to 3. In my world, it's how many new people I meet, how many demos I do, and how many whiteboards I do. Those are my 3 metrics. And I know that I try to meet 10 new people a month. I try to do 4 demos, and I try to do 2 whiteboards. I know out of that, if I'm doing that, then I'm going to land business, and that's going to lead to profitability on the revenue side. On the expense side, if you're a company that has inventory, you probably want to have something measuring that inventory level to keep, because that's a cost. Think of it as money that's laying on the shelf that could be doing something else more productive, either buying equipment or in the bank making interest, whatever. But inventory is not a good thing to have too much of on the shelf. You don't want to run out, but you don't want too much. It could be the number of projects. It could be timelines on those projects. So there's several different things from an operational standpoint that you may want to measure and focus on. And then your end one will be your financials, but those are kind of lagging, and those are ones that are more, those are not the dashboards that you're looking at. Those are things that you know that if you've got sales coming in and you're managing your cost, then you ought to be making money on the back end. So many people spend so much time on the back end looking at how much money they're making, and they forget the front end, and then they start nosediving. So those would be some just quick ones. Each industry, each company is going to have something different. Happy to have a discussion and help you figure out what those might be.
Yeah, this is some good tips there. All right. Second question. How can I set up a KPI tracking system that's both comprehensive and not overwhelming for a small business with limited resources?
So one is figure out what you're going to measure and then make it so it's not so intrusive and adding time and effort that people already don't do. You want to try to include it into the daily process of what they're doing now and not adding extra things or efforts for people. And there's softwares that do that. So, from a sales standpoint, that CRM can probably help you get some of that information and make it so that it's user friendly for that front group, that sales group, to do the things they need to do. The things we talked about were operational. You probably got some kind of tool. It's just pulling that stuff together so that those data points come to life for you, and try to make it more, don't make it so spreadsheety. Try to make it picturesque, because it's that dashboard. It's like, is it red, yellow, or green? And keep it simple so that you and your team know exactly what's going on. And there's all kinds of different softwares that can help you achieve that without breaking the bank. If you don't have something today, I'd start simple, reach out to us. Happy to give you some insight and help you look at different tools out there of what you could use to be successful with it.
All right. So we know from what Dennis has talked about what KPIs we should be looking at, understanding about the tracking system. So once I have the data, how do I translate that KPI data into actionable strategies that can actually improve my business's bottom line?
So ideally, as you're setting those KPIs up, don't do it in a vacuum. You're meeting with your team and talking about how you're going to get there. This is this HR thing. This is where you're engaging you and your employees to come up with how to get there. And that's why you want to make it visual so that they can see how they're doing, because nobody usually wants to finish last. We like to be productive. We want to achieve. So if you can make it where they visually see how they're doing, that allows then you and your team to make this more fun, and it's not senior management or owner forcing this up on them. They're engaged, and then they can see the dashboard and they know where they're going. And I think that's the key to it, is don't make it where it's dictated down, make it where it percolates almost up from the bottom, because they want to be successful and they've bought into it.
Have true company buy-in on it. Don't mandate it. It sounds like it's something that we as a team in our company all should be looking to try to work on together.
Yeah. And I'd say, if you find that you got some employees that are fighting it, that's a whole different conversation you probably need to be having in your head, because maybe they're not the right people to be on your team. And that's an HR conversation.
Yeah. That's another topic for another day, but that's a good one. That's a good point. Okay. So question number 4, what are some of the most common KPI tracking mistakes small businesses make, and how can we avoid them?
So the first one is they try to measure too many things. Again, the mind can only probably manage 3 to 5. I've seen some that have 15, 20, 30, 40. It's crazy. And then it becomes a full-time job just keeping track of KPIs, and then they never really look at the KPIs to focus on what needs to happen. So keep it simple. Keep the numbers so that it's manageable for you and your team. Make them visual. Again, I've seen lots of people where they get so into the spreadsheets and it's so difficult to calculate that nobody can understand it and they just give up. Make it so that people understand what you're measuring, and don't make it a math formula that you have to have a master's degree to figure out, because if you do, you've lost.
Okay.
Those are the big ones that I can think of, Benny. I mean, again, and if you've been doing it for a while, you definitely can make it more complex. But if you're just starting out, again, remember, first grade, this is kind of like first grade. You got to know how to add 1 + 1 to get 2. By 4th grade, you were doing multiplication. And by 6th grade, you were into, algebra and calculus and that kind of stuff by the time you get to high school.
Yeah.
Same concept applies here, that if you're just starting out, keep it simple.
Keep it simple. And then as things grow, there are going to be certain stakeholders that are going to be interested in developing KPIs that might be relevant maybe for their division or their particular, operations is going to have different KPIs than sales. And so things like that, maybe we can kind of silo those, but have some primary ones that the company looks as a
And
whole.
the other piece I'd say that when you have your team meetings, be it, daily, weekly, monthly, have those KPIs to be part of the conversation. That's what your meeting ought to start off with those. And if they're green, the meeting ought to be pretty short. If it's yellow or red, then if it's yellow, you're starting to dig in to figure out why. And if it's red, there's probably more things you're measuring because something's wrong somewhere else or you set the wrong targets. But again, incorporate it into your daily and in your meetings. I see many people where they'll create the KPI and then they never talk about it throughout the rest of the year until October, November. This thing if you're doing this in January, you need to be talking big time in February, March, and April, because if you've got behind by then, you're not going to make it up in October, November, and December to hit your targets of whatever your financial targets are. And remember, it all plays to the financials piece, but that's not what you're measuring. You're measuring the result, the activities that lead to this. And Benny, I think in previous ones I've mentioned this, I hadn't mentioned on here. Trying to lose weight is the best way to describe this. The scale is the accounting tool. The workout and what I eat and consume is the leading indicators, and that's the KPIs. So I want to track how much of certain types of foods I eat, how often I eat it, how many times do I exercise. Based on those, I ought to know when I step on the scale if I've gained weight or lost weight. This applies to the business mentality. It's the same thing.
It's a great analogy.
And again, if I'm way overweight, I'm probably going to have more KPIs. If I'm not as overweight, I may not have as many KPIs that I'm measuring and holding myself accountable to. And then the other one is have an accountability coach or have an accountability group. So sales may have their KPIs, but operations needs to know those KPIs and ask questions of how they're doing, vice versa. Sales needs to be asking how operations is doing on their KPIs because they all play together, but they also then hold each other accountable.
We have one last question for Dennis here. And I think let's put a nice bow on it. But how frequently, Dennis, should I be reviewing and adjusting my KPIs? And what process do you recommend for doing this effectively?
So we just kind of talked about you need to be looking at these KPIs weekly at the
least.
At the least. I look at mine almost daily sometimes to see how things are going, and then planning my calendar out from a sales perspective of what the rest of the week looks like. Adjustments, you are gonna look at them because you've made this KPI decision back in potentially the beginning of the year as you're setting goals. We've been saying 2025 is a year of change. Some things may have changed that, I've got more leads coming in or I've got less leads coming in. Then that means, hey, I need to adjust those KPIs, or I may need to add a KPI to look at, let's say I've got less leads coming in. So now I've added in that I want to look at how many people I'm reaching out to through LinkedIn, or how many people am I guiding to my website, or things that I initially didn't plan to count, but I want to count them now because I'm putting focus over there because I think there's ways to grow my business in that particular sector. Okay. Operationally, maybe you didn't have a project and you've landed something that changed it and you need to track some more effort around that particular project and you want to put some KPIs. So there are things that adjust, but again, keep it simple, keep the numbers so it's not so massive and mind-boggling that you can't keep track of it, and don't make it a full-time job doing it.
KPIs are going to be very relevant. I don't care how small a business you are, or maybe how you feel you have a nice understanding of how your business is doing. This is really the true litmus test, and it gives not only you the comfort of knowing that what you're guessing at is actually true, or can alert you and make you aware of certain trends that you should be watching. And so, Dennis, I know that there are going to be some people who might have some questions. They're going to have, maybe even need your counsel in terms of their particular business. What's the best way for them to get a hold of you?
Yeah, email is probably the best for me. It's Dennis J, so it's DENNISJ @WorkSolution, WRX solution without an S.com. You can also reach me on LinkedIn, and you can also come through our website, WFH with 2 guys, and send a question that way. Would love to have a chat with you. Happy to review free of charge your current KPIs and give feedback, or if you need guidance on how to set up KPIs, happy to have that discussion with you as well.
Dennis is going to be the KPI expert, but if you need to talk to me about anything other technology related, you can reach Benny at velocitytechnology.group, and that's BENNY. As Dennis had said, reach out to us on LinkedIn, each individually. I've noticed that we get a lot of requests on a daily basis. Connect out to us. Ask us questions. We love to hear from you guys. This is important. You guys keep us going. So thanks again. This has been a really good discussion, Dennis. I appreciate the time. Thanks for sharing your wisdom with us.
Yeah, good luck on your KPIs for 2025.
You've been listening to WFH with Two Guys. We'll see you next time.